Welcome to our Breakfast Club call. Today is Thursday, March 21st, 2024, and my name is Pamela Pacheco, and I have the absolute honor, pleasure, and privilege of being your host on this beautiful Thursday morning. We have started the morning asking, what does a leader mean to you, right? And if you are just joining us for the first time, welcome. I remember when I first started entrepreneurship over a decade ago, I was looking forward to these type of mentorship calls. Not only was I looking forward to these morning calls because of the information I was going to receive, but I was looking forward to these type of calls for the inspiration I was going to receive. Garbage in is garbage out. Greatness in is greatness out. So kudos to each and every single one of you that decided to start your morning with some light, with some positivity, with some greatness this morning. So if you were on last week, we were talking about a skill set, right? One of the skill sets we were talking about was overcoming objections, closing and overcoming objections. Type a C if you were on the call last week. Yes, yes, yes. And if you weren't, right, it will be available on our Breakfast Club call on our Chosen Global YouTube page this in the upcoming days. Now, what I wanted to talk to you guys, first timer, welcome, Tonya. Welcome, welcome. Hopefully I said your name right. Is it Tonya or Tanya? Tanya? Hopefully I said that right. Second one, if I said it correct the second time. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, welcome, Tanya. Welcome to our Breakfast Club call. Welcome, everybody. We have people tuning in from Philly, from New York, from Tampa, from Georgia, from Hawaii, Chicago, Atlanta. Welcome to the call. Welcome to the call. Make sure you let everybody know we are on the Zoom and we are ready to go. I know people are having technical difficulties this morning, so thank you guys for your patience. So what we're going to talk about today are types of leaderships, right? And we're going to talk about what are the qualities of a lasting leader. And I was just asking you, what does a leader mean to you? A lot of you guys, one says that one that takes ownership, one that takes accountability. You guys were sending it to you. Welcome, Amber. We have a lot of first timers on here. I absolutely love it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, Xavier. Also a first timer. Welcome, welcome. Greatly appreciate you guys tuning in. So Vicky said one that is trustworthy, one that is following through. Somebody else said one that displays character at all times. Somebody else said one that serves. So when we think about leaders, right? When we think about different types of leadership, there's so many different types of leadership. However, the 6 main types of leadership are transformational leadership. And if you're taking notes, you may want to write this down. I always say, write it down as if you were going to teach this one day. Okay, note takers are history makers. So one of them is a transformational leadership. And another one is a delegative leadership. Another one is an authoritative leader. Another one is a transactional leader. Another one is a participative leader. And another one is a servant leader. So transformational, delegative, authoritative, transactional, participative, and servant leader. And Lisa says, a leader is someone with insight, credibility, and a sense of certainty. Absolutely. Leaders are those that are able to bring certainty to an environment that there isn't any. So when we talk about, the types of leaders, and we talk about, a transformational leader. And first of all, it's important for us to know that when you talk about all types of leaders, right, it's not that one is better than the other, or it's not. Sometimes you have a combination of leadership styles. And it's important for us to understand that when we talk about a transformational leader, it's a leadership style that emphasizes exactly what the name is: change and transformation. Leaders who often adopt this approach strive to inspire their followers, to inspire their team, to inspire their community, to achieve more than they ever thought possible by tapping into their potential. And we've often said that potential is just a fancy word for you ain't doing anything yet, right? And this type of leadership, a transformational leader, they can be very highly effective in organizations looking to make significant changes or transformations. Now, if you are ever asking yourself, well, how can I identify, Pam, if I'm one of those leaders? Well, number one, are you focusing on the future? Transformational leaders always look ahead and think about what needs to be done to achieve the team's goals or the organization's goals. They also inspire their leaders to do the exact same thing. Here's another thing that a characteristic of a transformational leader. They focus on change. Transformational leaders are comfortable with change, and they understand that it's necessary for organizational success. They also work to ensure that their followers, their teammates, they're comfortable with change and can adapt to it. Another characteristic, a focus on people. Transformational leaders see the potential in each and every single one of their teammates, their followers, their organization, and they strive to develop their leaders by focusing on their individual strengths and abilities so that they can reach their full potential. Right? I consider myself a servant leader and a transformational leader. And one of the reasons is because we spend a lot of time in leadership development, right? However, I also do this because I believe that we all have gifts. And I believe that all of the dreams that we, each and every single one of us have inside of us, that God put inside of us, he gave us the abilities to achieve those dreams. And he gave you gifts that he didn't give me, and so forth and so on. And I believe that a great team, great leaders complement each other, right? But they also bring that out of people. They also allow people to believe in themselves. They also allow people to know that, hey, you can do it. Let's work on those strengths, because even weaknesses are opportunities for strengths to be nourished. Our weaknesses can be something for you to just learn. It can be a learning lesson. So that is a transformational leader. Again, they focus on the future, focus on change, and they focus on people. Next leadership we're talking about is a delegative leadership. Sometimes I wish I was more of a delegated leader, I'm not gonna lie. But the delegative leadership, it's often referred to as laissez-faire, right? And this basically focuses on delegating initiatives to our team members. And this is generally known as one of the least intrusive forms of leadership, if we're honestly speaking, because this translates to let them do. And this is therefore very considered a hand-off leadership style. And leaders who adapt this style have trust and rely on their teammates. And they don't micromanage or get too involved in providing feedback or guidance. Instead, delegative leaders allow their teammates or allow their organization to utilize their creativity, their resources, and experience to help meet the company or the team's goals. This can be a successful leadership strategy if and when team members are competent, they take responsibility for their work. However, delegative leaders can also lead to a lot of disagreement among team members and may split or divide a group. It can definitely be challenging for newcomers to adapt to this style of leadership, or staff members to develop an understanding of who is ultimately in charge and responsible for outcomes. Therefore, this leadership style must always be kept in check. So when we talk about certain characteristics of a delegative leader, it is one that just prefers people, and it's not in a bad thing, right? But you just prefer people to just learn by doing, right? You just prefer people to just be like, hey, listen, you know what? I'm not, you have a real carefree, like, I'm not going to micromanage. I have zero desire to get involved. I have a zero desire to, when it comes to a teammate, when it comes to a new person, you kind of just let them learn by getting their nose bloody on their own, by getting their hands dirty on their own. So those are characteristics of a laissez-faire, or what is called a delegative leader. They also just let them do. They let them do. And a lot of times, it's like in this business, when we talk about, we got to get somebody started the correct way. And it's kind of tough to be a delegative leader, in my opinion. And you could type it in the chat if you feel different, please. I'm open to conversation about this, because we have a system for success. And we often understand that it's when people get started, they have a very short window, right? That very short window of excitement, that very short window of really and truly, it's like a baby when they're born. And it's like, you gotta feed them. You gotta kind of like nourish them. You gotta walk them through the system, because system stands for saving yourself some time, energy, and money. And one of the reasons that that's sometimes often very difficult here is because we want to make sure that people are on the right track, right? Because we want them to get started off fast, and we want them to learn at the same time. We want them to grow, but we also want them to be mindful that how do you do anything is how you do everything. And how you get them started, yes, Lisa, how you get them started means everything, because they're going to do that same thing when they get somebody else started. So we always want to be very cognizant of, when we are getting someone started, are we taking them through the basics right away? Because the reality is that there are systems for success, and system stands for saving yourself some time, energy, and money, right? And I like to say time or effort and money, whichever you prefer. However, those systems are in place for a reason. So it's important that even though you may want to be a delegative leader, even though you may want to be the person that is not micromanaging and you're kind of letting people just, learn and fall as they may, you want to keep in mind that this is important for us to lead people right, because that creates a ripple effect in your entire organization. So it's not, I'm not saying anything wrong with this type of leadership. This type of leadership is phenomenal. However, be very, very careful, because how somebody gets started is not only how they're going to get started, but it's also how they're going to get their team started. And if you are getting value so far, type a V in the chats. Awesome. Awesome. I love it. I love it. So transformational leadership, delegative leadership. Let's talk about authoritative leadership. Now, when we talk about authoritative leadership, right, I'm so grateful you guys are getting value. Awesome. Awesome. Praise God. So authoritative leaders, they're often referred to as the visionary, right? Anybody consider themselves a visionary? This is leaders who adopt this style, consider themselves mentors to their followers. And it's not to be confused with an authoritarian leadership, because authoritative leaderships emphasizes a follow me approach. This way, leaders chart a course and they encourage those around them to follow. So leaders who display authoritative traits, they tend to have the characteristics that they're motivating, right? I've been called like a visionary leader, authoritative leader. I think I'm definitely a combination, but they love to inspire those around them by action. I'm definitely that person, right? A lot of you are on here as well. But the reality is that these visionaries, these authoritative traits, they're providing overall direction, and they provide their teams with guidance, feedback, motivation. And what this does, guys, is that it promotes a sense of accomplishment or achievement. And the authoritative leader or the visionary leadership style, it relies heavily on getting to know each team member. And for me, and why that I feel like it's also an important characteristic to have in this business, is because this is all about building relationships, right? Building relationships is so important. And what this does is that this also allows the leader to provide guidance and feedback on a more personalized level, helping individuals to succeed. I wish I could turn my camera around so you guys could see my whiteboard in my office, because I have on here the goals of our teammates. I have on here how close they are to their goals, right? Why? Because their goals become my goals. Their needs become my needs. And I know all of my teammates' kids. I know the names of their husbands. I know the things that are most pressing to them, because I believe in spending time to getting to know people. I believe that relationships are so powerful. One of the reasons you have seen me, enroll just people, and one of the reasons that I can meet somebody and get to know them, and I can transform a cold market into a warm market, is because I get to know them, right? And people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care about them. That's what it is. And I know, without, like Lisa said in the beginning, leaders are able to, those that bring certainty to an environment where there isn't any. I know with absolute certainty there's no better opportunity for you than what we have. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that this can meet all of your basic human needs. This can allow you to achieve your goals, but in the meantime, it will allow you to be the best version of you. And the reason why I say that is because it's important for people to always have a perspective and know that authoritative leadership, they're very hands-on, but it's also like a very borderline. You have to do your best not to micromanage, because this is a tendency with this leadership style, which sometimes, quite honestly, it can be overbearing, and for teammates or your followers, right? And sometimes it can create negative sentiments, but you're able to provide guidance and feedback on a more personal level. And here's what I do to even check myself when I am incorporating this leadership style, is that I ask people, I said, hey, like when I get somebody started, I'm like, hey, why you want to do this? Like, why? Why do you want to do this? And okay, they tell me, you know, I want freedom. I was like, okay, what's your freedom look like to you? What number does that mean? Well, freedom for me, it's not really, you know, I had a teammate tell me is like freedom for me, if I can just replace what I'm making at my job, they make multiple six figures. And freedom for me is just being able to go see my mom whenever I want. My mom is getting older, and I'm just giving you guys one example, right? And I was like, okay, cool. Well, what are you, and I, again, me checking my gauges, right? So what are you willing to do for that? What are you willing to do for that? What are you willing to, how many hours a week are you willing to put in? Because I'll let them know, okay, based on what you're saying, your freedom number is 1,000 squared, right? And that takes 2,000 people in your organization, 1,000 left, 1,000 right. That means that you are making $20,000 a month, more or less. So what that is going to take some work. However, you're not going to do it by yourself. We're here to help you through that. But how many hours are you willing to put in towards your dreams, towards your goals, towards the end result that it is that you want? So authoritative leaders or visionary leaders, they're also going to be the people that you ask them, that you're going to see characteristics of people that just want to build relationships, or people that just want to get to know people. It's not that we're being nosy. It's because we know that people will give up on business all day long, but guess what? They won't give up on people, right? People will not give up on people. People will not give up on the people they know, on the people they care, on the people they love. So these things are very, very important when you are doing leadership, right? Another type of leadership is, when we're building teams, is transactional leadership. So transactional leadership is often referred to as managerial leadership. And it's a leadership style that it relies on rewards, and also as equal, it relies on punishments. So this leadership style, it clearly just emphasizes structure, and it assumes that individuals may not necessarily possess the motivation needed to complete their task. And with this reward-based system, a leader sets basically clear team goals or tasks for their teammates, and the leaders also clarify how their teammates will be rewarded or punished for their work. Rewards can take many formats, but typically involve financial recompenses such as pay or bonus or trip. And this can give and take leadership style. It's more concerned with efficiently following established routines and procedures than making transformational organizational changes. So the transactional leadership, it establishes roles and responsibilities for each and every single one of the employees. However, it can also lead to diminishing returns if employees or teammates are always aware of how much their effort is worth. Therefore, incentives must be consistent with the organization's goals, or with the company's goals, with the team's goals, and supported by additional gestures of appreciation. So again, this leadership style, it's not that it's, but transactional leadership, it's one of those things that you always want people to feel appreciated. You want people to feel loved, but it's like when you see people that they just want structure, and they have clear tasks, and they just want you to follow the routines and follow the procedures, and that's okay. However, you know, it's not necessarily one that is welcomed in this industry of direct sales or network marketing. Now, participative leadership, sometimes referred to as a democratic leader. Participative leadership is the leadership style that encourages leaders to listen to their teammates and involve them in decision making. This leadership style, it requires leaders to be inclusive. It requires leaders to utilize good communication skills, and crucially, being able to take power, to share that power and responsibility. And when a leader adopts a participative leadership style, this encourages collaboration, because this encourages not only collaboration, but it encourages collaboration through accountability. And this often leads to a collective effort from the team to identify what problems and develop solutions instead of assigning individual blame. This leadership style, historically speaking, has been prevalent and utilized by many leaders in top organizations and companies around the world. However, working habits definitely changed. Can we say the pandemic changed a lot of working habits? Absolutely. So a lot of teams and organizations, not only in direct sales and network marketing, but around the world, they've become more decentralized. So this leadership style is just a tad more complicated, but it's spontaneous, it's open and candid communication, is often associated with a participative leadership style. Remote working or virtual teams can make this particularly challenging to maintain. However, when you are just building trust, that's one of the things that I love about the participative leadership, because it's often favored because it helps build trust with your teammates. It helps build trust with your organization, because you're empowering them and encouraging them to share ideas on essential matters. And what this does is it demonstrates their value. Like, again, and it goes back to what we were saying at the beginning, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care about them. So participative leadership is one of those that is just makes people feel like, man, I'm valued too. No matter if we have a system, like we have you, we definitely are, we definitely matter. We definitely, people definitely, they definitely care about what we have to say and what it is that we're doing. And as always, if you are getting some value from this, type a V in the chat. Awesome, awesome, love it. Number 6, leadership style. It's a servant leader. So servant leaderships is a leadership style that puts the needs of others first. It emphasizes, it's a combination for a lot of us, right? And I know I'm a combination of a lot of the leadership styles, but servant leadership is really how I associate myself with, because the servant leader is a leadership style that puts the needs of others first. It creates strong relationships with those around you, and it focuses on enabling them to reach their full potential. And as a leader, it requires focusing on understanding the people you're working with and developing their abilities and developing that potential and developing those skill sets, and it's also setting a good example and understanding their personal goals. So it kind of goes back to what we were talking about, that we just love to help people reach their goals. We help people, reach their fullest potential and tap into the greatness that each and every single one of us have inside of us. And also there's gifts that you possess that nobody else does. So the servant leader just does their best to say, hey, we got goals, but man, you're so amazing at doing it, but I'm also going to lead by example. And at its core, servant leadership is really about ethical decision making. And when we follow this model, you become more likely to make decisions based on what is right for everyone involved, rather than just benefiting a select few. And I love this approach truly because it fosters an environment where creativity and problem solving thrive, as team members feel empowered to suggest new solutions, to suggest new ideas, to suggest new ways, to suggest new things, and it builds upon each other's ideas. So it's a very collaborative effort. And when you actually follow the principles of servant leadership, it can result in improved communication between all the involved parties, from your upline all the way to the brand new person that got started. But even in other organizations, from senior management to the frontline employees, because you're taking into account the opinion of the subordinates, the opinion of people. And I always love to say, like, your rank does not determine your leadership. Your initiative does. Your willingness to learn, your willingness to take action, your willingness to help people, your willingness to love on people, your willingness to serve, right? That's what I feel, that as a leader, it's never by what your rank or your back office says, but the leaders that are servant leaders, they take into account these type of opinions from their entire organization, and they don't treat people different based on, oh, if you just got in, or if you're 50-50, or if you're 1,000 square. Like, no, they teach everybody the same. And by taking into account these opinions of your teams and collaborative efforts, what that does also is it prevents any potential conflicts. And it's not to say that you're not going to have conflicts, because you deal with all different types of personalities, and we're all dealing with our own spiritual evolution in this human experience, right? But we take into account their perspectives, you take into account their feelings, you take into account their opinions of different things. And this prevents any potential conflicts, because you're maintaining both healthy relationships and, more than anything, peaceful work environments. So ultimately, these qualities help create a stronger sense of loyalty amongst the team and amongst organization, which consequently leads to increased productivity overall. So again, if you're just joining us, we're talking about different leadership styles: transformational leadership, delegative leadership, authoritative leadership, also known as laissez-faire leader, transactional leadership, participative leadership, and servant leadership. And what we're seeing is sometimes you're a combination of 2 or 3 of them. And sometimes you start at one level of leadership and you go into another one. You know, one of my favorites is John Maxwell. He has absolutely the 5 levels of leadership. And I encourage you guys to actually take that test, right? Because John Maxwell really breaks it down for us when it comes to the different levels of leaderships, and knowing also that it's okay to be at one part right now of your leadership, and it's okay to have to go into another one, and you grow into certain ones. And sometimes in your life it just requires you to be at a certain level, and that's okay, because at the end of the day we're always growing and we're always, you know, seeking to do better and be different. So these are the types of leadership styles. And I wanted to kind of get into the types of leadership styles and then go into the qualities of lasting leaders and how it applies into not only our business and our lives, but our organizations. And 3 of the qualities of the lasting leaders is: number 1, you assume responsibility; number 2, you create accountability; number 3, you live for legacy. So let's talk about assuming responsibility for a second. Responsibility finds a way. Irresponsibility finds an excuse. So why do I say that? Now, when you talk about this business, yes, it can be just plain cut, exactly what that means. You find a way, or if not, you find an excuse. However, I think that there's a lot of different things sometimes that, you know, we as leaders kind of have to pivot, right? There's a lot of changes taking place in our organizations. There's a lot of changes taking place in the company in the upcoming months. If you were at our last event, you know that there's some exciting things taking place. However, and I'm gonna shout out, I am going to shout out Miss Lisa Burton on here really, really quick. So Lisa and Denise, Queen Bosses from Philly, right? They always host events, they host different things. And what I love is that, you know, when they are looking at the inventory and they're like, well, maybe, you know, I invest in my business and I have tons of different products. But here's another thing that they do. They're looking for solutions, right? They're finding a way. So Lisa sent me a message and was like, hey, I need these products. Do you have any of this, that? Guess what? I know I was not the only one that she sent that message out to, right? She sent that message out to a lot of different people. Why? Because she is finding a solution for what it is that she's doing. So why this is important is because you want to have a mindset of always finding solutions, of you always finding a way. Again, I'm gonna shout out some people and just give you guys your flowers. Terry on Crook, the lady dealer, Miss Michelle Briscoe's on here, right? They're always the people that are like, they're looking for solutions. They work 70, 80 hours a week, okay? But they're looking for solutions. They're finding a way to invite people. They're finding a way. And what they do is, right? And again, this is a really bonus training. Everybody type in the chat, BT, right? Bonus training. And why this is powerful is because who works in here? Type of 1. Type of 1 if you're busy. Type of 1 if you got kids. Type of 1 if you have a husband. Type of 1 if you do anything else outside of secret. Type of 1 if sometimes you feel like there's not enough time in the day, right? But it's called leverage, right? It's called leverage. So you find a way by leveraging somebody else's time, somebody else's expertise. And let me tell you, I heard nothing but great things. Terry on killed the presentation live in Atlanta last week and Thursday. So what that tells me, and I know Michelle could do it also, is that they're more than capable of doing the presentation on their own. However, the obstacle is the time, right? The obstacle is they're doing a lot of other things. And it's like, they got to make sure that they're keeping a roof over their heads. They got to make sure that their bills aren't paid, that they still are keeping their careers, because when you're building freedom, sometimes you got to work your job 9 to 5 and then build your freedom part-time. and you compartmentalize different ways. And again, it's giving you guys all your flowers because you're taking initiatives. You have to, yes, Lisa, you have to be able to pivot and do what you need to do to overcome obstacles. And when you talk about lasting leaders, man, it's like, y'all don't even know. It's, yes, it's getting creative, but it's also being resourceful. You're assuming responsibility and you're finding a way. And truth be told, you guys inspire us to continue to be greater, to continue to do more and be better, because it is absolutely refreshing when you see people that they're not letting their obstacles overcome them, that they're not letting the situation be so detrimental or to consume them, because whatever you focus on the longest becomes the strongest. Your self-talk, the self-meaning you give things, it makes a difference. So it's also being cognizant of these things and saying, hey, you know what? Absolutely, Terry, we shine together. But it's teamwork makes the dream work. But it's also knowing that, hey, sometimes I gotta take the back seat, right? And I will tell you, it's one of those things that it helps so much, because it helps the next person that you're bringing on. No, listen, we got a system for success. If you want to learn, we got you. If you want to take action right away, we got you. However, as you're learning, you don't have to stop doing, right? Because here we get to shorten your learning curve. Here we get to say, hey, no matter what it is that you got going on, we're going to help you do this. Now, if typically how it works is if somebody wants to go ahead and the person with the clicker gets paid quicker, right? Because you're not working on nobody. However, sometimes because you have time is an issue or an obstacle, it's that sometimes that becomes an excuse for people. So kudos to each and every single one of you guys that it does not become an excuse, because you find a way, because leaders that last assume responsibility. Number two, leaders that last create accountability, right? That accountability, it's the glue that bonds commitment to results. It's funny because I said this earlier and I was like, my team, I wish I could turn around so you guys could see my whiteboard and I have everybody like where they're at, where they finish. And then every month I change it, right? Like, okay, well, this, because obviously, our back office resets every month. So, okay, I know this one and I have like on there, okay, how many we showed this week and how many, what we're doing. And it's interesting because when Michelle introduces me, she'll tell people like, when you tell her your goals, they become her goals. And that accountability is like, they be telling her dreams, they become your dreams. And it's funny, but it's true. Because if you know me, you know that. And I'm the person that's like, yeah, so what we gonna do? Right? Like, what we doing for this? And those are things that, sometimes, and I've learned that I have to be careful how I do this. So I kind of tread lightly at the beginning as I'm getting to know people. Again, goes back to the types of leadership styles. I love to build relationships with people because, sometimes if people don't want to be held accountable, and it's like accountability may feel like as an attack for people that are not ready to be held accountable. And that's never what we want to do, because we always want this experience to be in love and light and fun, right? It's all about fun, freedom, fulfillment, but we want it to be fun. But guys, that accountability, it's definitely the glue that it bonds the commitment to the results. So find yourself an accountability partner and understand that lasting leaders, they're the ones that say, hey, we're going to hold each other accountable. Trust me, I got people that hold me accountable. Like, how many you showed today? How many messages you did? Where we at in this goes? And it's at different levels. You're going to be so grateful for that accountability. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. There was a point in my career in this industry, and even I remember I can go back into my finance days when I was in banking, that I used to be so annoyed because my boss would come into my office and he was like, oh, their numbers look like this and they're not supposed to be there, and you said you wanted this, and I'm just like, right? Because I wasn't really, like, I said I wanted something and I said I wanted this stuff, but I wasn't really at a place personally. I wasn't personally developed enough. I wasn't spiritually developed enough. I was dealing with a lot of trauma from the corporate world, a lot of trauma from life, that I wasn't really trying to be held accountable by nobody. And I was just like, why is he always on my stuff? Like, leave me alone, right? But I learned that, man, when I look back at it, and I was like, man, I'm so grateful that I had people that cared about my goals, because It's not that they cared about my goals because they wanted the bottom line, even though sometimes they want to make sure that bottom line is done, right? But it was more so because he cared about my goals, because he cared about what I wanted to achieve. He cared about what it looked like for me on the other side of that. And he knew the significance that came from that, the accolades that came from that. And I was grateful that even when I wasn't at a space of that I was personally developed as much as I would love to be, or spiritually developed as much as I would love to be, I had people that believed in me, right? I had people that saw different things in me, that spoke to the potential that was inside of me. And, it allowed me to just get better. It allowed me to do better. It allowed me to, climb charts. And I became is like one of the top financial people. I was like running the South Florida division for my bank. And it was because of that mentorship, but really it was because of that accountability. So that accountability, it matters. It speaks volumes when you talk about the glue that bonds the commitment to the resorts. Here is another quality of a lasting leader. They live for legacy. Type a L in the chat if you got a legacy you want to live. Yes, yes, yes. Man, I'm going to tell y'all, tomorrow is my mother's heavenly birthday, and the goal is not to live on earth forever, but is to leave something that does. And that legacy that you leave, yes, we say a good man or woman leaves an inheritance for his children's children. A lot of times that inheritance is not only financial, right? It's also impactful. It's also creating a dent in the universe. It's going to be almost 3 years that my mom became my angel. And I get people hitting me up every day, whether they worked with her, whether they were in political organizations with her, because my mom served in politics and ran politics in the Dominican Republic for a very, very long time, working from the White House to grassroots, development organization. And they hear me speak and they're like, man, that is your mom, right? They're like, that is, you not only look like her, but just, how you speak and how you carry yourself, and you see the legacy just continuously. And ask yourself, what does that legacy look like for you? How is it that you want to be remembered? What is it that you want to leave, or for people to say in your eulogy? And it's crazy because when we talk about living for legacy, it's always on my mind, right? Because I know that I have to, yes, Lisa, to making a dent in people's lives and in the universe. That definitely is what legacy means to me. And I was judging a beauty pageant about almost 2 weeks ago. And you cannot ask the contestants the same questions that you asked them at the beginning of the day, nor can you ask them any questions that any other one of the judges. So y'all know your girl over here got to be, using my big old head and my brain over here. So I'm like, well, what can I ask that's going to be a good one? So I asked this lady, and because they have different categories, and this one was considered the elite because it was like over 45 category. And I asked her, I said, what would you want them to say at your eulogy? And as she answered, the crowd went crazy because she broke down and she started crying, and she said, my mom just became my angel yesterday. And what I would want to be said at my eulogy is the same thing that I have to write on my mom's, that she was someone determined, but that she was someone resilient, that she made people better, that she made people smile, that when people thought of her name, joy and love and light came into their lives. And as I'm even like telling you guys this, I'm getting emotional because, man, it was so powerful and it was absolutely incredible. And I, of course, got teary-eyed while she's answering. So my head is down and I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I did that. I had no idea that her mom had transitioned. I had no idea, but I believe, God does what he does. God is too intentional to be coincidental. There's no such thing as coincidences. There's God's incidences. But it was God that wanted me to, bring that out of her. And it's interesting because when you think about legacy, yes, it has to do with inheritance. It has to do with residual income, but always understand that this should give us all a perspective to say, man, what do people say when they think about me? Is it a great thing? Is it joy? Is it peace? Is it love? Is it legacy? Because that legacy is what's going to outlive you. And it's not to the goal is never to stay on this earth forever, because we understand that we are not from here, okay? Our residence is somewhere else, okay, heaven, but it's to definitely leave something that does. And I believe that when we choose a life of generosity so that others can live a life of opportunity, inherently you're living for legacy. Inherently you're going to be a leader that lasts, because you're assuming responsibility by living a life of generosity. You're creating accountability, and more than ever, that is allowing us to go from good to great. And when you think about the leaders that last, the leaders that do what it takes to go from good to great, they understand that the answer lies in the ability to play long term. So have a vision. Have a vision for what you want your leadership to look like. Have a vision for what you want your legacy to look like. But have a vision for what it is that you want to be remembered as, what it is that you want to be remembered for. And absolutely play the long game. Play the long game, because yes, great leaders, we anticipate problems. But here's another thing: we proactively bring solutions. We have a vision to see beyond the short term. And not only to see beyond the short term, but to execute the plans that will impact generations to come. Our mindset is focused on the eternal rather than fixed on the temporary. Because I believe with every fiber in my being that God doesn't call us to do what we can't. He calls us to do what we can, and he will always take care of the rest. Anyone can start, but ask yourself, can you continue? Anyone can leave, but ask yourself, can you stay? Anyone can celebrate, but ask yourself, can you sacrifice? This is how we become leaders who last. Great day. God bless. As always, it is a pleasure, honor, and privilege to serve you. Breakfast has been served. Hope you guys got value. Type a beat in the chat. Thank you guys so much. Really, really, really appreciate y'all. Blessings on blessings. Let's get it.